Welcome, brave souls, to Fear File Chronicles, your one-way ticket to spine-chilling stories and terrifying tales. Tonight, we'll be diving into the darkest corners of the human mind with the story, The Soviet Union is Responsible for the Death of God, Part 2. Penned by the twisted mind of SouthParkiscool. Together, we'll explore the unexplained and face our deepest fears. But before we begin, if you enjoy trembling and terror, be sure to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow fear fanatics, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click the bell notification so you never miss an eerie episode. Your support truly means the world to us, so feel free to leave a comment below to join the Fear File Chronicles community. Now, without further ado, let's unravel the mysteries of the unknown together as we delve into tonight's fear-inducing story, The Soviet Union is Responsible for the Death of God, Part 2. Dim the lights and prepare yourself for a chilling journey into the Fear File Chronicles. Here are some more entries from the journal. I estimate I have about 2 days to relay the rest. What's astounding is that the Soviet Union, while experimenting with interdimensional portals, managed to kill God. This incident led to a covert war with an army of radiant entities. Entry 12. On the 3rd day of the 8th week, I was informed that the glowing beings had ceased to emerge from the gateway. The portal had sealed itself, leaving behind a single cryptic letter. The letter reportedly said, "We don't and can't comprehend your world. Reading the minds of your people is a feat beyond our reach," suggesting one of two possibilities. Firstly, an alternate Yahweh could be the supreme God of your world, preventing us from accessing your minds and spirits. Secondly, there might be no divine ruler in your world. Yeshua, Yahweh's son, now sits on the throne in heaven, governing both heaven and earth. He has commanded us to turn the other cheek and close the portal to your unpredictable world. I couldn't help but laugh at the ludicrousness of what I had just heard. So, we had indeed killed God, but this couldn't be the end, could it? I lost my brother to God's wrathful angels. If joining him in hell was the price I had to pay, then so be it. Upon returning to the base, I encountered my commander for the first time in weeks. "So, the war ended today, huh?" I inquired, seeking confirmation. "That was one hell of a battle."
"It ended 2 days ago,"
responded the commander.
"Didn't you get the memo?"
"You mean the one about the glowing men being God's angels? And us having killed God?"
"Yes. The top brass want to reopen the portal and sweep heaven for its crimes against our union."
"If Jesus indeed honors his word, it shouldn't be too challenging," I countered. I was relieved that the war had concluded. As for the ambitions of those in charge, the idea of re-entering the portal was daunting. The angels wanted us exterminated, and their beasts were nothing short of terrifying, let alone lethal. Despite my apprehension, I was ready to confront it all in defense of the Union and to avenge my fallen comrades. Entry 13. Lunchtime discussions that day revolved around God and the Bible. God was dead. His angels had retaliated by slaughtering many of us, and we were expected to take it all in stride. The real surprise was the fact that God had ever existed. I grew up an atheist, likely a result of Stalin's harsh repression of Christianity. My parents never mentioned religion or gods, making religious practices seem foreign to me. My childhood babysitter had a strong fascination with God, but I never shared his devotion. I don't feel the need to decipher the angel's message when they killed my brother, but I'm certain it wasn't benign. Entry 14. Currently, I'm sitting on my bed, a letter from Khrushchev in my hands. This should be intriguing. Just a while ago, each of us was given a letter. I assumed it had something to do with Yahweh. I opened mine to find a statement from Khrushchev. I read it from start to finish without pause. Here's what it said. "Over the past 2 months, we have sustained significant losses, all because of entities that religions deem holy and good. Upon reviewing the Holy Bible, I discovered numerous instances where God, or Yahweh, committed horrendous acts during his lifetime. Exodus 21, verses 20 through 21. Anyone who beats their male or female slave with a rod must be punished if the slave dies as a direct result, but they are not to be punished if the slave recovers after a day or two, since the slave is their property. Leviticus 25, verses 44 through 46. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans, born in your country, and they will become your property. You can bequeath them to your children as inherited property and can make them slaves for life, but you must not rule over your fellow Israelites ruthlessly. 1 Peter 2, verse 18. Slaves, in reverent fear of God, submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh. Remember, slave labor was rampant in America, and slave owners justified their actions using the Bible. Take Job, for example. Job, more than anyone else, worshipped God. Yet God saw fit to kill his family and pets, just to prove to Satan that he could torment his followers, and they would still have faith in him due to his grandeur. God was so self-absorbed that he betrayed his own people to feed his ego. 1 Samuel 15, verses 2 through 3. This is what the Lord Almighty says. I will punish the Amalekites for what they did to Israel when they waylaid them as they came up from Egypt. Now go, attack the Amalekites and totally destroy all that belongs to them. Do not spare them. Put to death men and women, children and infants, cattle and sheep, camels and donkeys. Even innocent children and infants weren't spared. I used to think the Bible was a work of fiction, written during a time when people routinely killed those related by blood to criminals. However, considering we've made contact with a world where beings similar to those described in religious scriptures exist, I can confirm we were attacked by a cult army led by an egotistical maniac. A maniac who would go as far as annihilating those who disagreed with his beliefs, including those incapable of making rational or irrational decisions yet. We will reopen the portal, march into heaven, and overthrow whoever succeeded Yahweh. We will replace them with one of their victims. Your commanders will provide further details on when Operation Fighting Angels will resume. It appears I'm destined for a realm of horror and uncertainty. Just the thought of the Ophanim sends chills down my spine. Every recollection of them fills me with a sense of impending doom. All I can hope for is to bring them down before they claim my life. Entry 15. I'm about to head out to the portal. A ton of us are going in. This is the weirdest thing we've ever faced. But all I want to do is to make it out of this alive. Entry 16. Well, I can say I made it into heaven, but I'm completely lost right now. A pit formed in my stomach as I neared the portal. We went in a single line, probably the longest one I had ever been in. As I stepped through the light, I nearly froze, but then I saw the other side. A healthy green forest, a beautiful blue sky. I looked to my left and noticed some mountains in the distance. Despite all of that, there was an eerie calmness, like you're being watched by somebody, but you can't figure out where they are. As we walked through the forest, there was tension in the air. I held my gun close to my face and continued to follow behind my comrades. Soon enough, I heard an ear-puncturing boom, then was blinded by a light and pushed back into the soldier behind me. We both fell onto the muddy ground, while the others fired in the direction the boom happened. I rolled into a bush and refocused while breathing heavily. Peeking out of the bush, I noticed two glowing men navigating through the trees. I fired at them both as quickly as I could. I hit one of them, but missed the other. He shot a look of determination in my direction. I fired at him before he could react. I just kept going, looking around, waiting until I was in the clear, then moving through the trees, heart beating fast as I made my way to a good spot to take cover for when I needed to. I had to have traveled miles through that forest before anything else happened. I heard some shouting, followed by multiple sonic booms, echoing throughout the area. My heart sped up even more. I ducked behind a bush and remained alert. I've moved several times and shot countless glowing men. Every single time I'm about to take a shot, I dread missing the target. I would die for my country, but I wish to continue serving Khrushchev and his anti-Stalinist agenda. Entry 17. After a few minutes of rest, I sensed an overwhelming presence. I peeked out of the bush, and beyond the tips of the trees, there was a giant set of rotating wheels adorned with eyes. It had to have been miles wide and miles tall. My heart sank. I watched as a dozen shiny white beings descended into the forest. My view of them was soon obscured by the trees. I had no other choice but to run and make sure I continued contributing to the mission. I jumped out of the bush and sprinted for my life, navigating the dense forest. As I ran, a series of ear-puncturing booms shook the ground beneath me. About 10 minutes of heavy breathing later, I reached a cliff. Off in the distance was a rail yard on the edge of a small town. It was packed with probably hundreds of people. However, I was too far away to be able to determine if they were my comrades. As I watched on, I heard a thud behind me. I turned around and saw a glowing white being with 4 heads. 3 of them looked just like the heads of animals. One of them looked just like a human head. Before I could react, I was knocked unconscious by an invisible force. I awoke in a basement with cracked walls and dented pipes. A man who looked to be in his 50s was sitting in a chair directly across from me. He had shiny hair. My first thought was that I was kidnapped. However, this man wasn't glowing. What did he want? He chuckled.
So you're another one of those soldiers from a different dimension?
He said, yes, I said. Sovi.
I know. I heard of the experiment. The portal closing in on God, and just like that, they died.
I didn't have much to say. My head was still spinning from everything that happened. So I asked him who he was.
I'm the one you're going to help.
Are you an
angel? No. I don't associate myself with people who exclude and kill those who don't follow a torturous, so-called truth.
You're willing to fight with us?
Yes. You guys did something that shattered our universe. The uprising is now going to start 3 years earlier than I'd originally planned.
The man balled his hands up into a fist. Then a patch of blurriness appeared between the man's face and my own. The blurry orb became an image of a white church with a crowd of people huddled around it. I could see movement in the crowd. The devil was showing me a film, or a form of extrasensory vision. He explained it was what was going on all over planet Earth. There were religious people huddled in and around each and every religious building on the planet. Young people, old people, animals too. He then showed me a different vision, one similar to the last, but taking place at the Notre Dame Cathedral. People were clogging the roads. Some were sitting on top of cars.
When God died, the world went into a collective shock. Since then, depression statistics have skyrocketed. People have become agitated, blaming one another for God's death.
He showed me a vision of dead bodies lying in streets of New York City.
If I went to Earth to spread the truth about God, I would be outcasted. God tried to frame me as the evil one, and he did so successfully, just by making me a main antagonist. Then, over thousands of years, using popular culture to frame me as a giant Red Bull with horns, who had a lot of spiritual power, and did all the bad things God did. Wars, natural disasters, cannibalism. God enabled that shit, not me. I've been hoping to one day put an end to God's ruthless vengeance.
I was nothing short of amazed, especially at the notion of him being framed as the villain. I could hardly fathom it, but there I was, speaking to the devil himself.
They follow him, so blindly, like they're unaware he condones torture. They twist it, call it his grand plan, but that's merely rationalizing the torment they endure. They were directed to follow this man, for he is righteous. Everyone simply complied, and he prevailed. Anyone who dared to defy him was eliminated, even though he commanded them not to kill. Some argue that it's justified, but if killing is wrong, it's always wrong. Yes, I've killed, but only because God forced me to, just to feed his vanity. God took 2 million lives. I took 5, not 5 million, just 5. A being with the power of God could resurrect those 5, but Yahweh chose not to.
I still found it hard to accept. The devil was siding with me. I listened as he went on about the New Testament being God's way of gaslighting his followers.
Just because someone apologizes doesn't negate their actions. If you cause trauma, don't expect forgiveness. Then you have those religious zealots who harm others in God's name. They're like brainwashed, abusive children.
His words were striking uncomfortably close to home. I attempted to redirect the conversation towards his referenced uprising. So, if God is no more, who do we bring down other than the angels? The devil gave me a look, an understanding one, unlike anything I had experienced.
Who do you favor? Women? Men?
We've developed a variety of weapons for this patriotic war.
It's fine. Do what you're comfortable doing. You're accepted here.
He began explaining the uprising. Now that God was gone, all that was left was to finish off his army. Easier said than done. There weren't enough soldiers in the devil's army to tip the scales. That was until my army provoked God's angels. Half of them descended upon my reality, and apparently we had slaughtered them all. Unfamiliar with the laws of my realm, their vengeance had lured them here. Now, the remaining half resides in heaven, having nearly wiped out my comrades. A cold dread filled me at this news. However, the devil assured me I had no need for worry. Some time ago, he had persuaded 1/3 of God's army that their revered deity was the devil in disguise, lying and gaslighting them all. The angels believed it and mutinied. They were banished to hell for their rebellion. Apparently, my army had slain as many angels as those who revolted, leaving only 1/3 remaining. So, how many angels did my comrades and I exterminate? I asked.
Over 1 million.
1 million? But what about the guardian angels? There must be billions, especially after the baby boom. How is 1 million 1/3?
Guardian angels don't partake in God's battles. They watch over children.
And what's Jesus Christ's role in all this?
Jesus Christ was God's human embodiment, not a separate entity. Now we must plan the uprising.
The devil laid out his strategy. In essence, we would infiltrate heaven in groups, then employ guerrilla warfare to disrupt whatever order they had. Afterwards, a vote would be held for a new leader, a new God, a God to establish a fresh order and rectify the havoc Yahweh had caused. But there was a catch, one that wasn't surprising.
There's a 50% chance you'll perish in the uprising, no matter how well you hide.
My heart sank nonetheless. These monsters had to be stopped. I found myself in a position where I could influence the hierarchy of heaven, a notion still largely incredible to me. Regardless, it was my duty. My instincts were urging me to join the battle. I was going to end this. After our strategy session, the devil expressed a desire to show me something. He led me upstairs to his living room. There, he instructed me to peer out the window. When I did, I felt a pit form in my stomach. People were hung from the branches of every tree. The grass was a sickly yellow. Cars were vandalized, left abandoned. Bones littered the rooftops of houses. I shivered and turned back to face the devil. Whose bodies are those? I stammered.
Innocent doctors, psychologists, teachers, men who loved men, women who loved women, those who bore imperfections, women who chose independence and control over their own lives, and bodies, and some of those you see are still alive. The shock, for various reasons, leaves them indistinguishable from the dead.
I'm sleeping in the basement tonight.
I recommend you follow through on that promise.
Who in their right mind would murder innocents? The devil sighed.
At least the Soviets are a necessary shield.
He whispered to himself. Why wouldn't we be?
Oh, no. I meant that differently. No. Anyway, before we do anything else, I'm going to show you a wider picture of the world out there.
The devil led me to his car. A battered, yellow, 4-door. It bore the scars of countless scratches and dents. I was soon swept into a surreal journey. As we traveled down the road, bodies hung from the trees, swaying slightly. I gagged at the sight. The road was scarred, cracked, and filled with holes, some oozing red liquid. We progressed along a main road that should have been bustling with traffic. Yet it was eerily deserted. Minutes later, the devil wordlessly directed my attention to a grim spectacle unfolding in a parking lot. A gang was ruthlessly stabbing someone. Passers-by ambled past, faces as dead as stone, seemingly unfazed by the brutality. Suddenly, the devil slammed on the brakes. A peculiar sight unfolded before my eyes. A dozen small, spiky creatures that spat mini fireballs every 3 seconds were casually crossing the street. One clutched what appeared to be a charred human hand. These beasts were clearly lethal. My heart pounded as we waited for the bizarre procession to pass. Once they moved on, a truck with an unsettling logo breezed by us from the opposite direction. Forbidden meat, it's not immoral. The message chilled me. What could it possibly mean?
If someone comes to your door and invites you to a special restaurant at 5 p.m. without any official identification, close the door,
The devil cautioned. That was the extent of his spoken advice for the remainder of our drive. Beyond his pointing, the silence was deafening. Apart from the horrors I've already described, I bore witness to an unsettling series of scenes. A young man shot in the neck. Boarded up windows on what should have been bustling shopping centers. Crumbling houses and clusters of homeless people. A 5-eyed lamb that stood perfectly still, studying me with a look of sinister determination. The world outside was a chaotic nightmare. Yet it seemed I needed to understand this reality. The same cage where God placed innocent beings also housed deadly creatures, murderers, and unimaginable horrors. Entry 18. Here I am, sitting on what can only be described as 2 mattresses stacked upon each other in a basement. Animalistic screams echo ominously from every direction outside. A pit of dread gnaws at my insides. I have no idea what could happen to me while I'm asleep. All I can do is hope to wake unscathed. Down here, the windows are devoid of curtains. To shield myself from the horrors lurking outside, I'm going to switch off the lights. Maybe then, whatever hellish creatures roam the night won't see me. Well, my friends, we've reached the end of tonight's chilling tale. The Soviet Union is responsible for the death of God, Part 2, by the talented SouthParkiscool. I hope you've enjoyed our descent into darkness, and that you'll carry a piece of the Fear File Chronicles with you as you drift into uneasy dreams. If our story left you shivering and shaking, don't forget to like this video. Share it with others who crave a good scare, and subscribe to the Fear File Chronicles for more haunting horrors. Remember to hit the bell notification so you're always among the first to know when a new nightmare awaits. As always, we appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Sharing your fears and frights with us truly means a lot, so don't be shy to engage with our sinister community. Until next time, remember to embrace the darkness, for it is within the shadows that our most terrifying stories are born. Good night, and stay scared.